So, welcome to the latest episode of the NRG podcast, The Horse That Asked Why, and other stories. Great to be back. We've had a slight pause due to unforeseen day job circumstances, so please forgive us. We've got another fantastic guest, very excited to make the introduction. But before we do so, we're just going to do our traditional round the table. Let's start with the best looking polo manager in Adelaide, Mr. Glenn Gilmore. What have you been up to?
Well, there's only one to choose from, and that'll be me, and I win that. No, so we've had a ripping time in Adelaide. We're playing lots of polo next weekend. We have 22 teams coming over. I have to apologise for all of the crows that are making a lot of noise in the background here.
We can't hear them.
Can't hear them.
Things are fantastic. We are having a brilliant time. Two beautiful fields that they've got down here, and setting things up for next year. I'm going to definitely be coming back for a couple more years. Been giving lots of lessons. My daughter, funny little story, put on a post on Facebook. We've been trying to get hold of a few grooms, and a couple haven't been able to do it and got other jobs. And we got about 90 replies. And I was like, oh, my God, how are we going to sift this out? So we went through and got it all down to possibly getting, girls that could ride and look, always looking at Facebook photos. And then this small little French girl who was down in Adelaide, which is only half an hour away, she said, I can ride. I can come out and start straight away. I was like, right, I'm coming to pick you up now. So we got her out, and the poor little thing, she spoke a little bit of English, not great. And so with our Google Translate and everything else, we put her on a horse. She got on the wrong side, which wasn't ideal. Yet she didn't under the reins, which wasn't ideal.
Is it like toilets flushing the wrong direction? Do they get on the wrong side in France? Or the other side?
Anyway, we go riding, and she was safe. She did everything, but we could just tell that she was so tiny she could hardly get the saddles onto the back of the horse. Like, that's how small she was. Anyway, she's just the loveliest girl, and we eventually sort of realized that it wasn't going to work. She was with us for 3 days, and she helped out and did whatever she could. But I had to sack her by Google Translate. It's the worst thing I've ever had to do. It was bad because
that's cold.
It was cold. What else do you do? I couldn't. Not like I could just write it in bigger letters.
You bastard.
Oh, but anyway, we actually got, when we took her back to the backpack hostel in Adelaide, Lucci and I both nearly had a little cry. Like, she's just the most beautiful human being. But anyway, that was sad. But things are good. We're off to Elliston a week today, which is pretty cool. We get ready for 2 weeks at Elliston. So there's 8 16-goal teams up there, and then we go to Garangada for 2 weeks, and there's 9 16-goal teams there, I think. So, yeah, very busy, a lot of fun, and Sydney, and then not long till I'm in England, guys.
Oh, 25th?
Yeah.
I've got it tattooed. Got it tattooed on my arm.
You're a weirdo.
That was exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah, I didn't tell you where I've got it tattooed.
Hey.
Nick May, what have you been up to?
Well, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. Day job's been quite busy. One of our Brazilian entities suffered a major cyber attack, so it's been all hands to the pump trying to basically unravel that. Some very nice people, we're not entirely sure where from, took over the network, stole a load of data, and left us some nice messages saying that they would be willing to give it back to us for a small consideration. So we've not gone back to talk to them, but we're trying to. They've encrypted about 80% of the servers in the company. Company's at full stop, and we've been trying to figure that out. So it's been an interesting time.
Serious.
Wow.
I am serious.
Wow, that's next level.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So
that sounds bloody good fun, I must say.
But what I think people need to know, Nick, what people need to know is that we have scheduled many things that we're about to do, and we're going to interview this person and that person. Even yesterday, we were going to interview Christian. But for all the listeners out there, it's not like we're not trying to do regular interviews. Unfortunately, our work life does get involved. So for those of you who are sitting there going, we want more, we really do want to do more. We do one every week if we could, but sometimes work just gets completely in the way.
Well, you say that. You say that work gets in the way. There are some people whose personal administration is absolutely shocking, and it's more their administration than their work which is getting in the way. On that note, Mr. Ainsley, how are you?
I think it might be weather more than administration. We seem to get about 4 days of good weather, 4 days of polo in, and then it rains again. We had an inch of rain yesterday. But it's all good. It's all good here. Playing polo between the rain here in New Zealand. We're off to the beach after this. We'll get some content. Nick, sorry about not getting any content to you. I know you've been asking for it. We'll get some good forestry riding and charging around content today.
Yeah, our Instagram has been suffering from lack of content. Again, to our listeners, I'm really sorry. There's not a lot that I've got going on at the moment, horse-wise, because it's frozen and snowing again, and 2, day job. So I have been pestering Mr. Gilmore and Mr. Ainsley, who have been steadfastly ignoring my WhatsApp messages. I know they get them. I can see that you've been
moaning. On to our amazing guest.
Yes.
I want to hear this information.
On to our amazing guest who's sitting there absolutely bemused by the nonsense which is going on. So, if you have watched any soft tissue manipulation of horses on the internet at some point in the last 10 years or so, it's a fairly high probability that you will have seen our guest working his magic on horses all over the world. Yeah, I think you hold the record of it. Is it 8.5 million views on one of your
Yeah, well, that's my record. Yeah.
Yeah, you've watched it 8.5 million times.
I'm happy to take that. That's the best record that I have in the world for me. Yes.
That's a pretty good one.
Well,
what platform was that on?
Sorry, that was on TikTok.
Awesome.
So that was a video on TikTok, and it was with a thoroughbred, and I was fixing its hamstring. I'd just come back from
one of those 8 million. That was freaking awesome. That's where it first got my attention.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That was amazing.
Yeah. So
and I watched.
I just come back from. Sorry, what was that, Nick?
I watched it more than Ross did.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I just come back from Singapore, and it was my first day back at work. So it was at a Cranbourne race trainer's place, and her name was Sirius Princess from memory. And so it went off its dial. So 8.5 million, and you don't realise all the back stuff that happens with that. The messages, just having to maintain that kind of viewing was just crazy. So if I knew what to do, how to get $8.5 million every video, obviously I'd do that. But these things happen.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I didn't actually get round to giving your name before Ross interrupted, but welcome to the show, Christian Langeder. Welcome. I know that you have a long-standing relationship with Mr. Gilmore.
Yep.
So in regards of you treat his horses rather than before we go down a different route, obviously. But what we wanted to do is, having seen some of the magic that you've worked on horses, is get you on, get your perspective, get some of your experience and recollections. And I know we've had a number of sort of talks backwards and forwards, and I know you're incredibly keen to. Ainsley's disappeared off.
We lost someone.
It just wrapped. We wanted to get your insight. I know you're incredibly keen to share the message in the same way that we are. So fantastic. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Pleasure.
So, Glenn, could you tell us a little bit about how you first came into contact with Christian?
Absolutely. January 21, I was in Victoria. Lucci and I were mid-COVID, and we went down to we felt like we sort of jumped over the border, when COVID was a thing that we all were scared of. But anyway, we got down there, and I had a couple of horses of a client and a couple of my own that I'd liked to be looked at. And I rang Clemmy Mann and Sam Gardner, and they both said, "This is your man. Christian's fantastic. He's the best that we've ever used." So I was like, "Righto, done. Let's do that." So I rang Christian, and he was able to come out and see me, and it was fantastic. The horses felt a lot better after he'd seen them. And we then got him to do some more later in that season. And same as you, I've been watching all of the stuff that he's been doing on social media since. So it's a pity that I haven't been able to go back to Victoria to get him to do some more.
Christian, that's a great intro. That's so, which is funny because you were telling us a little bit about it yesterday that you didn't actually start off with horses. So can you just give us a little bit of your background and how you got into treating horses, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually was in hospitality before this. I was running nightclubs and bars, which was really far removed from where I am now. I know, look, both of you just went, what the?
Yeah.
I know.
That's quite different.
As a kid, I always wanted to work with horses, and I was running bars and I was racing BMXs, and I actually raced for Australia in the world titles in BMX. And
Racing BMX?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
You're just
awesome.
making shit up.
No, look, hang on. I don't know if this will work. There's my Australia top.
Oh, you legend.
Wow.
So
This interview's getting better. This interview's getting better and better. This is awesome.
I know, right?
Motocross riding nightclub owner.
I know, right?
BMX rider.
And so I raced in the
BMX.
world titles, and then the next race I did was just a little club race, and I came off really badly and broke my back in 3 places. So I messed myself up really badly. And so as a kid, I always wanted to work with animals. And so while I was in hospital and I couldn't work unaided for about 6 months, I think, I just developed a fascination for different types of therapies while I was trying to get myself fixed up. And so I decided I was going to start doing animal behaviour, like dealing with like canine behavioural issues. And while I was doing all these different soft tissue therapies, I just started mucking around with dogs. And so I started with dogs and rescue animals. And then I did that for probably about 5 years. So I was doing koalas, kangaroos. I did snakes, chickens, ducks, swans, like all sorts of stuff. And then one day I fixed a dog for a race trainer whose name is Ken Keys. And he's a Cranbourne trainer. He owns a horse now, which is that stud called Rich Enough. And that horse was sold at like $12.5 million or something.
Whoa.
And so I treated that horse through his campaign. But Ken Keys asked me after I treated his dog and fixed his dog to come and have a look at horses. So I really was never interested in horses, did not grow up with them. You can see how far removed my life was from horses, and yet now here I am, right? So
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And Sylvia McLaughlin, I mean, Sylvia, my 2 first real owners that I had that trusted me with horses, or the transition from small animals to horses were Ken Keys and Sylvia McLaughlin. So,
And when was that?
Oh, God. That was in 2005, maybe. So that's like 19 or so years ago. Well, yeah. Yes, Nick.
So talk us through how that first when you first turned up and got close to a horse for the first time and was just going through what was going through your brain going, I don't know where to start. Just talk us through.
Oh, yeah, it was more like
a horse person, Christian. You weren't a horse person, were you?
No.
Not at all.
No, that's so funny.
That's a big. That's quite a daunting challenge.
Yeah, so I was 30 at the time or thereabouts, like just over 30. Never been with horses. Was really very gifted with animals generally, but really did not want anything to do with them. So what was going through my mind was, what the fuck are you doing? I said no to Ken quite a few times, and he's like, mate, just come along. We'll have someone look after you. And as we spoke yesterday, I remember going into this. I reckon he had probably about 25 horses in work. He's a Cranbourne trainer. One of his daughters helped me, and it was I think it could have even been a horse called Blue Collar Jill. She was this nasty little ranger thoroughbred. So she was a chestnut. We were in this little stall, and I went. The girl was holding her, and I was sweating bullets. And I just went in there, and the horse. I remember it in slow mo. The horse quickly looked at me, and I startled, and then just set off this crazy chain reaction of me bailing out the stall, and this young girl holding this horse that's doing this, trying to get away from me. And then she unhooked it, and she walked out, and she comes up to me and she goes, "Just calm down." So that was the first horse I ever touched. That was, the first horse I tried to treat. Anyway, yeah.
Did you go back in?
Hey?
Did you go back in and?
Yeah, I went back in. I had to. Yeah, that's what. Yes. So anyway, so I went back in. I did probably 3 or 4 horses that day, just went over them. And it was over, they said, oh, look, we would just want you to come. It was on a Wednesday. We want you to come every Wednesday. So it was there that I realised I had a bit of a knack for fixing horses. That's where it kind of started. And I'm like, oh, shit, I can really fix stuff easily here. This is cool. So then it went into, I think I was at Ken Key's place, and I went there every Wednesday, and just he would give me whatever I wanted to look at. I was there for probably 12 years. Just knocking things out because I didn't have a mentor or anyone to learn from. So, yeah.
So, Christian, the first time you go in there and you get the crazy Ranger chestnut mare and you eventually get to go, right, I'm going to touch this or feel this. What are the first things that you go, oh, actually, this is the same feeling as a dog has or a cow, whatever?
Yeah, good question. That's what I thought. I thought that I was going to be able to transfer what I knew from dogs straight over to horses. It was so far removed from the truth. I reckon it took me about 5 or so years to really understand the difference between those two animals. So that even though they're built the same, they have such different patterns of soreness. And as we'll probably talk about, so do different sports. Like polo has a pattern and dressage has a pattern and racing has a pattern. So, and I didn't know any of that. And so I was just looking for any similarities to dogs, and there really wasn't that much at all. Aside from, well, obviously dogs bite and horses kick and bite, whatever. So there were hardly any similarities, even though they're all quadrupeds. So it was totally different. Yeah. Oh.
So, Christian, talk us through. I mean, I'm assuming you've developed some sort of process that when you first go in and you look at a horse, you work through a system.
Yeah.
Can you just talk us through what that consists of?
Yeah, so now, I coined a term reaction points. I look for all these different types of reaction points. The thing that I realised that I was doing wrong in the early days is whenever I saw a horse dip in the back, I thought it was the back. And so I would instantly go, oh, the horse's back is sore in that particular spot. So what happened was at some point I twigged that what those little reactions were that I was running my hands over are actually attachments to muscles. So instead of going, oh, that vertebrae is sore and massaging that spot until I ground into the horse, I would then go, all right, well, what muscle attaches to that spot? And then I would treat that muscle. And it sounds like a really simple thing to have bridged over to, but I'm obviously a slow learner. It took me about 5 or so years to realise that what I was actually rubbing or what I was actually trying to treat were muscular attachments. And so what I do when I get to a horse is I run my hand over the top of the horse. And there's probably about 15 points there that I'm looking at just at the top of the horse. And that's like probably
from head to toe, like from head to tail.
I start at the front of the shoulder, go over the withers, run all the way down the back, down the sacrum, under the tail, and then rip across the hamstrings to see what the hamstrings are like. Then I go to a muscle at the back of the stifle. So from that shoulder all the way through, I can tell you what 60% of your horse is doing. And then I go through the neck, the jaw, the chest, pick up the legs, have a look through the legs, and then look inside in the pelvis, in the groin. And total, they're probably about maybe around 35 points that I'm looking for. And each one of those has a rabbit hole or connects to others or it's never one thing. There's always a chain of them. And so they all have different patterns. So I look for those flinches or what I call a reaction point. And then there's also areas. Areas are things like saddle pressure, gut problems, structural issues like kissing spine, and they all have different feels. They all have different ways of being able to determine if it's the rear of the saddle, kissing spine, or hind gut. Like they all have a different feel and a different.
What do you mean? Can you break down a different feel?
Yep. Oh, can I?
Yeah.
The reaction point is a really short, sharp response. So, for example, if it's kissing spine, it's actually sort of like a really tight braced area, so you can't determine an actual point. And then a saddle, if you got a problem with the saddle, not only are you going to have more of an area than a point that's sore, it'll be like a big area, which is sort of like pressure and a bruise. But with a saddle, if you lightly scratch the skin, you can tell it's saddle. Whereas if it's a structural issue and you lightly scratch the skin, they don't have no effect because it's deeper. But with a saddle, because you're annoying it's called fascia, the soft tissue, the slippery stuff under the skin. Because you're annoying that, as soon as you scratch slightly with your finger, they just like try to jump away from you. And if you just apply like nice, firm, constant pressure, they won't respond. So that's the difference. There's points, there's areas, and then there's other stuff.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So it's I have obviously have a map in my head of, which I'm putting on a website, which is coming out in about 2
Yes.
weeks.
Yeah. No.
And
Well, let's talk about it now. Let's talk
What's
about
the
it now.
deal with the website? Like, what's the website? What utility has it got?
The website is Langeder Equine, the new one. So Langeder Equine, it's basically like a whole bunch of stuff to show who I am and links to all the things. But the biggest part of it was that I wanted to just educate people. I wanted to teach people, because I'm so busy, I'm so unique, and I got the response that I did on social media. I'm like, shit, all right, I need to actually help people. I'd been getting videos, we spoke briefly, I'd been getting videos from all around the world, people sending me videos saying, oh, could you help me? What's wrong with my horse? And we really had no language to speak. So if I'd say, all right, go to the wither, and they're like, oh, we just had, like, it was such a prolonged thing. Yeah.
I think we need to do a bit of backstory about how many hits, because we haven't actually covered that in the recording, have we?
Yeah, I think we covered
it. Yes, it's when you were offline. Bruce.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. That was amazing. 8.5 million hits. So.
Isn't that
okay,
ridiculous?
Cool. Yeah, that was awesome.
Ridiculous. So what happened was I decided that I needed to, and even I did a few TikTok videos of just doing stuff, and they did nothing. But as soon as I did videos on showing people like diagnostics, all of a sudden the TikTok video thing took off. And so what I was looking for is I needed to build a website to help teach people understand their horse better. And if nothing else, like I say, demystify the furry puzzle, but if nothing else, close the gap between veterinary speak or therapy speak and horse owners, because I often go to race trainers and I'm like, what's going on with your horse? And they're like, it's got a sore hammy, mate. It's done its hammy. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Where's the hamstring? They're, I don't know, just fix it. You know, so we need to have like something where we can actually like communicate and also gauge for owners. Like if you go into your stable or whatever, even if it's racing, if it's polo, if your groom can actually run their hand over your horse and say, look, this one's got dodgy hamstrings, maybe let's get someone to look at it. And then not only that, but if you get someone out to look at it, you can check afterwards and go, yep, they've fixed it, or no, they haven't. And that's the idea of what the website is. It's about demystifying this whole thing, showing people exactly and simply how to check their horse, and then know what your most logical next step is if you can fix it yourself, or what you need to do. Is it the saddle? Is it the girth? Is it the, is it the gut? Is it something a vet needs to look at? So it just helps you unpack and unbundle it.
This is awesome. When is it going to be available?
Hopefully 2 weeks. And it's, like I said, hopefully in 2 weeks. You can actually look at langederequine.com now, and there's a website there, and it's got an example of the modules, one of the examples. And each module, so for each of those points, there's a video of me showing how I check. There's written content. There's an anatomical diagram. There's more written content, which I've tried to keep really simple. And then there's another video which actually shows what it looks like when it's reactive. So you got how I check, what it looks like when it's reactive, because I learn more visually rather than writing.
What was the current website again? I just want to look at it now.
It's Langeder Equine, Langeder.
Equine, all one word.
One word. .com.au.
As you're starting to realise, Christian, Ross does a lot of research about our
is it there, Ross?
That we're interviewing.
For some reason, it's not a lot, but I think
it's equine. It's equine with an E, Ross.
Thanks, mate.
It's meant to be there.
EQUENE.
EQUINE.
I've actually spelled it right. Believe
what?
it or not. Yeah,
And it's
I
not
find
coming
that
up?
even hard to believe. No.
Oh, that's unfortunate. That
I'll
ruins
get
that then, doesn't it?
I'll send it to you.
We'll
Oh, do you have it, Glenn?
I had it. Yeah, I was looking at it the other day, and it's pretty cool the way you've done it, mate. And it's
Flick it on the WhatsApp group, mate. I want to see it now. This is awesome. I love this stuff.
Yeah. And what we'll do, Christian, is we'll fill in the blank. We'll
attach a link in the bio. And on shorts. What's this? It's like YouTube shorts you keep talking about on Instagram, Nick.
So YouTube, and
I'm trying to be TikTok.
Yeah, it's basically YouTube have realised that they're basically losing out to Instagram and TikTok, so they've launched their own thing, and yeah, so because of all the stuff that we've got, we want to put shorts, but also we want to start putting longer pieces from our New Zealand episode out, and we want to start putting some of the episodes like we have now up on YouTube as well. We're going to start we've already started doing some shorts, but we're going to do some slightly longer pieces as well. And when you finally get your finger out, Ross, we'll put that MVP.
And you know, I mean, I find TikTok is for short videos. TikTok and Twitter are actually getting more views than anything. I put a YouTube short on, and I got like 600 views. And then 2 days ago, I put a Twitter short video, and it got 26,000. So that's the difference. Like, and then the TikTok, the same video got 41,000 views, I think. So, like, you know, I didn't find much of a response with YouTube Shorts.
Yeah, no, I would be on TikTok more, but because I'm in the security industry, and because of TikTok's security policies, I don't use it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Christian, your followers, where would you think that you get most of your traction with your followers? Like what equine industry?
So definitely just normal racing and just normal owners. It is predominantly between the ages of 35 to 45. America is 60% of my viewing. Then it's Canada. Then it's Australia. So America, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, then Ireland are my main groups. And it is 70% female, 30% male, but that fluctuates at the most. Like, you know, it's 40% men and 60% women.
Hang on, Glenn, you've just sent me that email address, which I've gone through to, but it is a completely different email address than what we were just talking about. Can we tell the viewers this address? Is that okay? Because it
Which
is
one
a very
is it?
sharp
Thorough
website.
Performance.
I went to the Thorough Performance one.
Oh, no, that's a different website. Yeah, that's my old one.
Oh, okay. It's pretty sharp, though.
I'll see if I can. I don't know how to. You know what? I might see if I can do.
Be worth doing.
Anyway, we can keep chatting. I'm going to see if I can send it to.
Oh, no. Hang on. I've got a stray D in the website. Oh, no. That didn't work either.
Oh, my God. Christian, back to the people you go to. What countries have you practiced?
America, Australia, and Singapore.
Wow.
There's been interest since this. There's been a lot of interest in Qatar, England, America, Dubai. Singapore was a big one. There's been interest in Austria. Want me to go and teach vets in Austria. So, and then also I just had one from Japan as well.
How did the American thing come about? Who invited you over there?
Oh, no, I just went over there on a test.
Really? What? Yeah. And what'd you do? Where do you go to? What's the first year?
No. Well, you know what? I mean, I just did some muck around stuff there. It wasn't much. It was just kind of looking around, seeing what's going on. I've got a lot of. I should have gone to Kentucky because I got a lot of interest in Kentucky now at the moment as well. So we'll see what happens with Kentucky. But you know, it's since this has happened, everything's happened so quickly, and I'm trying to. Because what most people want is they want a course. So the first thing I wanted to do was write diagnostics and teach people how to check. their horses, because also, as I say, you can't fix what you can't find, right? So if you have no idea, because the common thing also people say to me is, oh, how do you fix it? What do we use? And I'm like, use a machine, use your hands, massage, use creams and gels, use DMSO, whatever's like available to you, use it, ice it, I don't care. But the whole point is, if you don't know what you're looking at, the machine is pointless. So the whole idea with the thing is first understand where the horse is sore, and then what's coming from that is then I will teach my version of what I do, which anyone can do. But I don't want people to get hung up on that. I want people to know that there's already a bunch of stuff that you can actually use. Those massage guns, fine, I don't care. Like infrared stuff, like whatever. I personally, out of all of the therapy things, think any big stable should have there's a therapeutic ultrasound, and they're like $700. I mean, I was working for Godolphin, and they wanted me to buy them a big machine, and I said, you've already got this little unit out the back that all the staff are using on themselves, and you're not using it on the horses, and it's like this little unit, $700. You put gel on, and it's an ultrasound, and it works awesome. But again, it only works as good as what your diagnostics are. So if you don't know where to put it, it's not going to do anything. You're not going to fix anything. So, and I'm slightly allergic to machines that are broad. I won't mention any of them, but the things that you sit on your horse, or like just therapies that are general, because I say it's sort of like going to a supermarket and sitting in one of those massage chairs and expecting to fix your frozen shoulder. It just ain't going to happen. So the whole idea for me was first to educate people on what am I looking at? Like, what does the horse have? And usually it's a simple thing, and usually it's like it's a simple thing that stops your horse more often than not.
And I'm not trying to be negative here in any way, Christian, because I think what you're doing and what we try to do is make the life of the horse better. But I just can't help but thinking, and other people listening to this will be going, but hang on, what if someone gets it wrong with the way they try to either diagnose or then go and do stuff?
Yep.
Do you know where I'm trying to go with this?
Yeah, absolutely. And
what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you combat that?
No, you don't. You combat it by actually going out there, mucking around with your horses and actually having a look at them and running your hands over them. The points are pretty easy to see. The points that I'm looking at are pretty easy to see. And to be able to determine between one and the other. In a particular area, like in the loin is what I call my Pandora's box. There are so many different attachments. So it's a little bit of diagnostics by omission. You have to be able to see what it isn't as well. So it's not the bum, it's not the pelvis, it's not the, so you have to go through. But that's the whole point, is that it's actually I'm pretty simple. No, it's actually a pretty simple pattern. So you're not going to hurt your horse by poking it. You're going to hurt yourself more than the horse. So be careful when you do it. But, right. You have to have feel. You don't just go in like a truck. So I think by people, even when people just brush them, you see where they dip, and you can go, all right, it dipped here. Let's have a look what that means. And it'll give you considerations. It'll say, right, this could be this, but these are your considerations. It could be the saddle, it could be the gut, or it could be whatever. But most of it isn't that difficult. Most of it is actually pretty straightforward.
Wow, I can't wait to see this platform. It's a fantastic concept.
I'm very, very excited about it.
Yeah,
obviously we're all polo players and we think we're special.
Yes.
And you said at the beginning that polo ponies generally have a particularly sort of pattern of pain. Could you just talk us through? And I think most of our listeners are polo as well.
Yes.
Could you just talk us through what patterns you generally see in polo ponies, and what we can look for and what we might be able to do as well?
Absolutely. Polo is definitely. Sorry, I'm just sending.
The best. I'll finish that sentence. The best.
Yes, you did. Well, seeing you guys are so awesome. So Polo is definitely mouths, necks, and pelvis. So the big thing is that you guys, you're sort of like, you're spinning it's sort of similar to almost cutting. you're spinning and you're accelerating, the down low torque that you guys do, there's a lot of inner pelvic stiffness, and so it will actually come up as looking like lower back soreness. But it's because where the lower back attaches into the pelvis and all the groin muscles, the horses are always like, they're having to be like coiled up like a spring and then just absolutely accelerate. And then because it's such a dynamic sport as well with the hands, things like, so for you guys, hyoid is a muscle at the back of the tongue. So if you see, I'm gonna flick to racing quickly, but or if you have a horse that's like turns one way but doesn't turn another, or is likes to hang onto the rein on one side or protect itself, there's like a wishbone at the back of the tongue. So there's the tongue, and there's like a bone called the hyoid, and there's a muscle from that bone into the jaw, which is the hyoid muscle. And what happens is when you touch the bit, it messes with that bone, and so they try to protect under here. And because it's not a very strong muscle, what happens is they protect, and so they won't turn the other way. So it's a really anything like racing when they hang in or hang out, or dressage when they're weird on one rein, anything that's quite dynamic with hands, I always look at the hyoid, which the way I check it is just under the jaw. I literally stick my hand underneath their mandible, and if you have a horse that has a sore hyoid, you will find it straight away. Again, you can massage that, or I've got my own tricky way of doing it, but just massage under there. But you'll know the horses, and if you go and touch there, if there's nothing going on, they don't react at all. But if they have even the mildest, because it's the face and it's a very sensitive area, and like people change bits, and it's like, no, don't just check the hyoid muscle.
I'm doing that in 2 hours.
Yeah, right.
You should definitely do that, Ross.
I can't wait to do that. I know what horses.
I think a lot of your horses have got it on both sides, because you can turn one way or the other.
There's a string of them actually that have it, ironically, and they're all ridden by you. 1 month ago.
I'm trying to say it gently. You can't say it like, so if you're hanging off their face, you got a really good chance that it's going to be under here. Anyway. So I
actually am. I'm going to go check that. I've got one horse in particular that's sort of like, and I can't put my finger on why he does it.
Just if you stick your fingers just under here, but just be really careful, because that's one of the really hyper reactive. They'll don't have your head anywhere near his head, or hers, and just palpate under here. And on the inside of the jaw. So check that.
Awesome.
Lower neck is also very polo, and there's like 3 attachments inside the pelvis. So if you just feel inside the pelvis as well. And
where do you mean? Like up?
You know where the bone is? Do you know where the
at
actual
the top
pelvic,
there?
Yeah, where the pelvic bone is. You just actually roll your thumb on the inside of that bone, sort of into that
around the front of it.
Part of the gut is. Yeah, the front of that.
Yeah,
bone.
right.
Yeah, you roll. There's 3 bands. The first one relates to it's kind of weird just doing it without actually having a diagram. The first one actually relates to the main back muscle. The next one relates to all the muscles that go through the ribs. And then the last one underneath that pelvis relates to the stifle, or it's tensor fascial artery, but it relates.
And this is all going to be on your website, eh?
It's all on the website.
I can't wait.
That's why it's such a monster.
This isn't an infomercial, by the way. I actually didn't know this website existed until this conversation.
I know, right? I know.
It's awesome.
Well, you obviously can't even get onto it at the moment, so I've got to figure out what's going on, so at least people can look at it. But yeah, it's a map of your horse is basically what I want it to be. And obviously it's going to be pay-per-view, but it's American, it's 150 American, which means it's like 130 £130 for a year. So, the first horse you touch, you're going to save yourself $130 anyway.
Cheaper than a vet.
Oh, it's cheap if you know which professional you need, or if you can just rub it yourself. I'm just
or
trying
if you've
to
got
start
60 horses in work.
Yeah, so prolonged answer, Glenn, to you is I'm just trying to start the conversation of teaching people how to know what's going on with their horse. And sure, plenty of people are going to screw up, but you know what? If they've got a good map of how a professional that goes over like 100 horses a week checks a horse, then that's probably a pretty good blueprint to go by.
Sure.
What do you find with racing? Like what stress points, or what did you call them? Pressure? What did you call them?
I call them reaction points. Yeah.
Yeah. What reaction points do you find you get the most hits with those?
Hamstring is the biggest. Hamstrings are the biggest with racing. I mean, obviously, they're young horses, and they're young horses, and they're we expect them to be like athletes. The hamstrings from jumping out of gates.
And does it change various ages?
Not that sort of thing, because the amount of download torque from that is like jumping out of a gate is pretty immense. It's similar to you guys, like accelerating off. I find with
not
horses,
me.
not you, no. I heard about you, Nick. Apparently, no.
Is there such a thing as negative talk?
He doesn't slow down. He goes from the stables flat out and never slows down, so doesn't need to accelerate.
That's right.
Negative jump out talk.
So in racing, obviously they don't have the issue with saddles because they use a trackpad. There's nothing on there. It's basically just there's no gullet, there's no anything. There's just a pad. So they very rarely have saddle soreness. Hamstrings. What else? Necks, backs, in certain areas, withers from collection. The thing that I find with racing the most is that they get worked too hollow. So things related to being worked too hollow, they're not collected well enough. So the sort of like the back of the horse and the front of the horse isn't talking to itself, but like they're not talking to each other. Then we have things like deep tracks. Deep things means that the horses start using their fronts too much, which they shouldn't. So as we went through winter, we got a lot of front end strains.
Like where the neck ties in to the shoulders. Where's that the front end?
So it depends on time of year. Like that time, you'll get like triceps, the pec, like the main chest muscles, and all through the neck because they're having to start pulling.
Right.
And they're not using their bums properly. So wintertime, the whole pattern shifts to more the front and less the back.
Wow.
And what's that? What's causing that? Is that because the ground's heavier?
Yeah. So what happens is when the ground gets heavy, if an arena is deep or the ground's heavier, then what happens is they don't get as much traction just pushing with the rear because they start slipping. So what they end up doing is they start trying to pull more with the front. And
makes complete sense.
Yeah. So then whenever you got, as an example, if you got horses that are training on hard stuff and then you go and take them out on a deep thing, on deep ground, your chances of getting a front end strain are massive, like way more likely, because all of a sudden they're not getting the grip they need. So they start trying to do this, So, so it depends on weather as well. It's an ever-changing pattern.
Yeah, for sure. Show jumpers?
Oh, yeah, show jumpers, jumping landing. So hamstrings, really high up hamstrings, and not only really high up hamstrings, but also all the muscles between their legs. So deep pec, all like their landing shoulders, so withers, subscapular muscles like under the shoulder blades, their chest, because they're always coming down on their fronts. So not so much bum, more really upper high hamstring and landing muscles. They're not they're not designed. They're designed to do all sorts of stuff, but I can see that they're punished by the constant landing. So it's always mostly lower neck between the chest underneath.
And one more, dressage.
Dressage is bum, a muscle called biceps femoris, which is the outer hamstring, and collection hyoid neck. Where you see that, I don't know if you call it, the poverty line, where you see that, that line on the side of the horse. So that muscle there that's creating that line.
Around the buttocks.
Yeah, down the...
Or
down
the one outside of it. Oh,
yeah,
right.
the one on the side of the horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you say the front, do you mean like at the front of the scapula there, or like...
so dressage
in the collection?
Is sort of collection.
Or low. It's where the neck
lower
ties
neck
in
into
as well.
the chest.
Oh, okay.
And then the hyoid TMJ sort of around the jaw from, depending. depending on how kind you are.
Right. God, it's intriguing.
It's
Mate,
crazy,
can you give us the most extreme result you've had, or is that the TikTok, the one that went crazy, 8.5 million?
No,
what's
you know
the most
what?
extreme turnaround?
I've had a horse that, you know what? I was speaking. You had disappeared. There's a trainer by the name of Gavin Bedgegood out of Cranbourne. He's a little trainer. He was just starting up. He's won the Grand Annual as far as a rider. He was a jockey, a jumps jockey, and he started training. We decided early in his career that we would get a whole bunch of ex-race horses, like buy them off other trainers, see what we could find, fix them, and race them. I reckon, like, he had one of the best winning percentages. We were, and I can't say who our favourite stables were that we were getting them from, but I could pick the stables that I would want the horses to come from, and we had a pattern. We would give them magnesium so they would stop spasming, because what happens in polo, again,
that was my next question.
I think every polo stable should have a tub of magnesium oxide that they give their horses. It's an antispasmodic. Horses burn, and I'll finish this story, then I'll come back to the magnesium thing.
Yeah, do. This sounds fascinating.
So what we would do was we would pick these horses. They were run ragged. They were about as soft as this table, and they would be wiry, worn out, all the rest of it. And so what would happen was we'd go to that place, we'd buy them. Now, I don't gamble, but I thought, you know what, this stable is so good. We've got this pattern down. I think I had 11 horses in a row that did not finish anywhere near winning in their previous start and won their first start back. And
wow,
the odds were incredible. So, like, I had one horse that I was quite comfortable seeing. It had come fourth, and I'm like, if this thing comes fourth like this, it took us 2.5 months to turn it around. We got rid of all its sore muscles. We softened it up, we fed it up, and we worked it properly so it wasn't hollow, and it started using its back again. I think it was paying something like, again, I don't want to talk about gambling, but it was paying something like $64 for the win. And I fully loaded up, like really loaded up, right?
Are you now a member of Gamblers Anonymous?
You know what? When I joined Sportsbet, because that was the reason why I joined Sportsbet. And when I joined Sportsbet, I was waiting for them to contact me and go, dude, what the? Because I reckon it was like, oh God, it's got to be between 11 to 15. I was like, I won each and every one of them, and it was only because I treated the horse and I knew that the difference was like staggering. So
it was all around 2 months turnaround.
It was 2 months, 2 to 3 months max.
Wow.
Some of them were a month. Some of them were like, you know what, this one fixed up way quicker than we thought. Let's go for it. Well, it's
that's cool.
Okay, website. Keep doing what you're doing and back hard. Go financially hard on them.
Mate, let's go back to that magnesium, because I know Nick's dying to know, and so am I.
Yeah. So magnesium. So what happens is any body user burns up magnesium as a natural anti-inflammatory. If you've got a sport whereby you are using things and doing micro tears or little micro injuries, or there's like explosive stuff, then recovery, your body is burning magnesium. How you know that you've got a horse that's magnesium deficient is they go ropey and rigid. And it's sort of like the only time that my mat doesn't work is when you've got a magnesium deficient horse and everywhere you touch, they fully spasm. It's like everything you touch is sore. And so what happens is magnesium oxide, it's a muscle relaxant. So any type of magnesium is a muscle, and it calms the brain as well. But magnesium oxide, it's crude. But it's crude in its uptake, and it will give them diarrhea, but that's good because, you know, if you're giving him too much, it's fine. But like 40 grams a day for horses, 40 grams a day for horses that are rigid, and 20 grams a day, like a small scoop a day, just as a maintenance dose to make sure that they're bolstered.
Nick, can you write that down?
Yes.
Because I'm trying to write it down, but I can't keep up.
Yeah.
Sorry, I speak quickly.
Does it work on people? Does it work
on our link in our bio thing too? I'm going to try that.
There's a thing called Corsmag.
Yep.
And it's Corsmag powder. Don't use the granules because it's like eating gravel. But there's a powder called Corsmag, and it's used for sheep and cattle. They use it for cattle when they're calving, to stop them cramping up and spasming up. And it's like a bag of it is like $20 for a kilo.
Yeah.
And it's the cheapest.
Dairy farmers use it all the time.
Yeah, it's the cheapest therapy that you'll ever give your horses. If your horses are, like I said, in full competition, when you guys are actually fully into it, then I would just give a maintenance dose of 20 grams, just a small scoop a day.
Awesome.
But aside from that, like if you see horses that are always the ones you know are always sore or always crampy or whatever, like I said, when you run over the horse, as opposed to the muscle being nice and smooth, it's like running over guitar strings. You can feel that they're ropey. Then that one needs 40 grams.
Awesome. And if they get the runs,
if they get the runs,
back it off a little bit.
Far. Yeah, you gone too far. Because the thing is, when you've got ropey muscle like that, which means that the muscle's in spasm, the next thing that's going to go is a tendon. Yeah, so you're going to blow something. When they are rigid like that, you're going to blow something or you're going to rip a hole in the muscle. So that's the cheapest form of therapy for your horse.
Brilliant.
So,
there you go. Corsmag.
Can we just? That was more than my brain could take in. So, can we just summarize again?
Yeah.
Magnesium oxide.
Powder.
You're using powder, but your body is using burning magnesium because your muscle, because the horse's muscles are inflamed. It's
a natural
using it. Period. Like magnesium's one of the most essential things. You'll be burning the shit out of it, whether they're inflamed or not.
Yeah.
But if they're not,
for any type of inflammation, magnesium, the body burns magnesium. So if there will be people who say, "Oh, don't use that. Use another type of magnesium," and that's why I say it's crude in its form, magnesium oxide powder, but it's easy to get. Horses uptake it really well, and then if you're going too hard on it, you'll get diarrhea. So you're going too hard on it, so back off. So it's a very simple way of doing it. You know what? We could make anything really simple complex, but if you've got a crampy horse or you think there's it's sore everywhere, give them some magnesium for a while. Start with, if it's bad, start with 40 grams. Normal horses in full competition, while they're really working, I think they should be on 20 grams a day anyway, just as a buffer. Because they store magnesium as well. So, we want to make sure that they've got a bit of a buffer of magnesium so they don't get to that point before we treat them. And then when they're off, just leave them alone. Don't do it. I'm not a fan of supplementing too much.
That's awesome. I'm blown away by that.
Yeah, that's really good. Next topic, real quick. I haven't got much time. I don't want to leave.
Sorry, I know. You're getting 24 years of shit dumped on you.
I love it. That's awesome.
Well, Roscoe, you must have some questions around saddles, overgirths, that kind of thing.
Do you find some horse chiropractors in England I've been talking to found that sports that use surcingles, like the racing and the polo, tend to get more lower wither sort of area issues? Have you found that in yours?
No.
Interesting.
But I'll premise this by saying I know enough about saddles to know that you need a saddle fitter. I don't try to, with vets, I don't try to fix the gut. I send you to someone that can actually fix the gut. I'm a muscular specialist. I definitely can see the difference between saddle soreness when we start getting pressure into the scapula, the shoulder blade. So I can see when we start getting pressure from the saddle, if the saddle's moving around, there's definitely patterns of saddle soreness that I will say you need to have a look at this saddle or change the saddle.
For sure.
You know what? I look at the horse as a separate thing and the saddle as just being annoying sometimes. I don't think that, I just confused you with magnesium about I can get into that stuff. I think saddles are such a particular thing and such a complex thing And the more we fine tune them like Formula One cars, the more complex they become. So, like, because back in the old days when you just used this generic saddle that's like solid and bulky and whatever, the horses had less problems than now we're using like really like fine, proper, I know you need to tune it up kind of saddles. So I sort of back away slowly from saddles. I can definitely tell if you've got a saddle issue as opposed to a muscular issue. I don't look for patterns in saddles personally. I leave that to saddle fitters. So
makes sense.
So sorry to not be helpful in that area, but
no, that's cool. That's good. Hey, can I just roll back to one of the things? I'm just curious about trotting horses or pacers.
Yeah. Yes.
And have you ever treated any big Clydesdales that are pulling big loads? Like
do you know what a Suffolk punch is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I treated a Suffolk punch not that long ago, and she pulls lots.
Hang on. What is a Suffolk punch?
Yeah,
I thought you said sucker punch. I'm like,
pull a picture up of a Suffolk punch. It is one of the most ridiculous looking horses. She was the most beautiful thing, but prehistoric.
Yeah, JFGI.
A Suffolk punch.
Oh, wow. Holy moly.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, right.
It is prehistoric.
Yeah, but again, fronts. Yeah, so I have. You know what? Any cart pulling horses or anything that pulls, we go back to the front. Yeah, so it's all front stuff. It's all mostly front, and not. You got to teach them to use their rear properly. A lot of trotters, if they're not really effective, they're just they're pulling with their front rather than driving from their rear.
Yeah, right. And it doesn't have an impact that they're so muscular over the back. Like that doesn't have.
Not to me.
Yeah.
Not to me, because it just means I've got a bigger muscle to treat. But the reaction is the same when I palpate. When I'm checking the reaction, the response is the same. Because muscle, even if the muscle's big, it shouldn't be hard. It should still be supple.
Yeah. Makes
so
sense.
Just because they're built or even overbuilt, they shouldn't be hard. They shouldn't be cramping or hard or spasmy. The spasms, all those points are the same points.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh my God, there's so much good information here. Guys, I've got to go. Glenn, Nick, you're gonna have to finish up. And Christian, thank you so much. It's been phenomenal. I won't drag out my exit, but I'll catch you later, boys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I can't wait to listen to the rest of the program.
Awesome. Well, we've always maintained this is the NRG podcast, so it wouldn't be the same without the R. I think we've had an absolutely incredible chat with you, Christian. Thank you so much. I think we've just scratched the surface, and we cannot wait. Oh, Ross, go on, Ross.
We've got to get him back on.
100%.
Yeah, we got. There's going to be a million questions come out of this.
Yeah, and also you've triggered so many thoughts. I think in probably all three of us that we're going to go away, have a think. Well, I'm going to go away and have a think. And then come back with probably a million more questions. So if you're up for it, Christian, we would love to have you.
Yeah, like I said, I'm messed up, so I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, exactly. Because Glenn's like, he's messed up. We can like slam him right now because he's not in the stables. We can just keep on just drilling this bloke.
Got to go, boys. Catch you later. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Good to see you.
See you, mate.
See you, Ross.
See you, Roscoe. But Christian, like I say, amazing, huge insight. I could sit and I'm sure we could all just sit and just throw questions at you. We had our original list of questions, which fell way short of the amount of detail you've given us. And it's also sparked a load more questions, which I'm hugely grateful for. So thank you so much. And we cannot wait. It's a great segue into some of the other guests that we've got. We've got a saddle fitter coming on, hopefully on the next episode.
Yeah.
So it's a great segue into that, but we would love to have you back and field a load of questions. I'm super excited about when your website is finally up and running.
I'll send you a link. And I'll also ask my web guy how come we can get onto it. We'll see. That'd
be amazing.
But it's langederequine.com. So, whoever's listening, go and have a look.
Is it langederequine.com or langederequine.com?
.com.au. Sorry. So langederequine.com.au.
Beautiful.
And it has an example of what the modules look like as well, so you can see what you're looking at.
That's so cool. Mr. Gilmore.
Yep.
Are you on mute?
He's on mute.
You're on mute, Mr. Ben, you're on mute.
We touched briefly on yesterday when you sent your the British Racing Society, whatever, and you got all those crazy amount of hits. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah. So what happened was the one that that one particular story that got 18.5 million hits. Sky Racing. Oh, they're called At the Races on Facebook. So At the Races, which is I believe is Sky Racing UK. They put it on their Facebook, and on their Facebook, they got 5.4 million views on their Facebook for that particular video. And they contacted me and said that it was the highest viewing thing that they've ever had in the history of their Facebook. So then it was actually on TV with them, with Sky Racing, probably about 3 or 4 weeks later, having a chat and being interviewed on Sky Racing in the UK, which is unique, being on UK TV while you're sitting in your lounge room during COVID in front of a computer. But
Yeah,
it was just,
And it's great to see the progression that we were talking about, that you've gone sort of Racing Australia, Racing Singapore, Sky, 5.4
Oh,
million.
I was, here, like, Channel 7, there's been so much. Channel 7 Sport here, Ladbrokes did a story on me here as well. There's a lot going on. Radio interviews in Ireland, America. It's quite busy at the moment, even though I'm laid up, which we didn't actually say in this podcast, but I've messed up and I've got a buggered shoulder that got reconstructed, and so even though I am not allowed to work for the next 4 months or be around horses for the next 4 months, I'm probably just as busy as I was. So
it's probably going to actually allow you to do the website properly, isn't it? And then you're going to be able
mate, can I tell you? I tell you how fortuitous it was. 2 weeks before the injury happened, I actually did all the filming for the website, because I've been talking about doing this website. And then when I did the TikTok thing, the social media stuff went crazy. So I just didn't have the time to do it. And then I actually went to Inga Burke's place. I went to Red Gum Run and just said to her, can I just spend a day here and film all the footage that I need? She's like, yeah, of course you can. So I filmed all that 2 weeks before I got completely monstered. Until, 2 weeks later, I got done by the horse and it dislocated my shoulder and tore all the muscles off my shoulder. And so if I hadn't have done that videoing, I couldn't have done the website while I was laid up. I mean, it was just such a lucky thing to have, like a lucky chain of events.
That's
really.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, how fortuitous is that? And like I was saying, the progression from Australian racing, Singapore, UK, TikTok, millions, and now onto the NRG podcast. I mean, you must be
you're everywhere.
The pinnacle.
I know, right? And as I said, I kind of started with Sylvie McLaughlin, started with dressage and polo, and now I've done a full circle back to polo, right? So here we are.
Christian, that's amazing. Well, look, we're gonna let you go. It's been an absolute delight. I'm already excited about the next time we get to speak to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And really looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Please send me any links as well so I can.
Good man.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And heal quickly, buddy. Heal quickly.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah.
Yes. Mate. You've been in the hyperbaric?
Sorry?
Have you been in the hyperbaric chamber?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Is it something you'll do?
Oh, definitely look into it. I haven't done it before, but I definitely look into it.
I did it for 3 injuries that I had, and
it
was a third of the healing time.
Serious? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
Ah, good to know.
Yeah. So get in one of those.
You can just take really deep breaths. Save yourself a fortune.
It's really good, mate. Go and and the thing
I'll definitely check it out.
Find someone that actually wants to get you back quick as you can.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing. It's really
Yeah,
cool.
I'll definitely look them out. Do you know where are they in Melbourne? Do you know if there's anything?
Mate,
else?
you just Google hyperbaric chamber.
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
send you the text, and then you'll find one there for sure because of all the diving that goes on around the place. But
Yeah.
they're using them a lot more and more for
Injury.
for sports related injuries. They use it a lot for anyone that has brain injuries, all sorts of things. Incredible.
Wow.
So yeah,
Definitely looking into it.
Righto, buddy.
Thank you,
Great.
guys.
Christian, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Catch you later.
Righto, team.
See ya.
Cheers.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.